All right, welcome everyone. Huge welcome to so many amazing folks. I want to give a massive shout out to David and Kevin and Amy and Marina and Isa and Graham and everyone who's joining today. You are not going to believe this, but we had over 1,100 registrants for this session. And we are so thrilled about all the excitement because Varun and I are total AI geeks. And we're going to talk about the dark side of AI. Don't worry about that. But we're also excited to show you the upside today and help you leverage that to land a job that you love. So just a little bit about your presenters today. So I'm Jeremy Schifeling, co-founder of the LinkedIn Guys, head of marketing at Khan Academy. And I'm joined here by Varun. Varun, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Varun. I am co-founder of Yudely. Before this, I was at Google, and I'm so excited to be here.
Woohoo! And so Varun and I share a lot of things in common. Number one, we're passionate about helping people lead their best lives by getting jobs that are meaningful to them. And number two, we just love to teach and communicate with style. So there's going to be a lot of interaction coming up here. So I have to warn you, it's not going to be your standard webinar, not one of those sort of PowerPoint Zoom fests, but instead, three big differences. Number one, there are going to be lots of pop quizzes. And unlike the pop quizzes you might have gotten back in school, they're going to be fun. They're going to help you get your mind in a good mindset heading into your interviews. Number two, I'm going to really encourage you to do exactly what I told my kindergarten students back when I was a kindergarten teacher in Brooklyn, which is the best way to learn anything is to get your hands dirty. So I know that AI can be scary. I know it can be intimidating, but the single best thing you can do is pull up a separate window right now with ChatGPT or Yudely or U.com or Bard or Bing Chat and play around with AI. You will learn so much faster. And then third and finally, because we always like to have a little incentive, I will be giving away a free copy of my brand new LinkedIn book, autographed by yours truly, to people who volunteer for live demos today, because we really want you to learn by doing. So with that said, let's start with the first pop quiz. So if you had to say, of all the annoying steps in the hiring process, which one do you think is the hardest? Is it A, finding the right role, getting that career North Star in your mind? Is it B, landing an interview, getting into the interview room? Or is it C, walking out of that interview room with a job offer? So let me know right in the chat, of these three steps, which one is the biggest pain in the butt for you? Elizabeth says A, Rosalind says B, Barbara says B. I saw a couple C's. What are you seeing, Varun? What do you think is sort of the zeitgeist of our audience today?
I'm seeing B's and C's across the board. Very few A's.
And obviously it's a self-selecting audience because we're talking about interviews. But I would actually argue, this is a little devil's advocate now, that the underlying pain point behind all of these steps is what I call the blank screen problem. Here you are, incredibly talented as a coder, as a writer, as a communicator, and yet before you can get that dream job, you've got to stare that demonic blinking cursor right in the face and overcome that analysis paralysis. What job should I go after? What should I put on my resume? How should I get ready for my interview? And because so often we are on our own for this critical step, it can just feel so overwhelming. And so the beautiful thing about ChatGPT and other AI models is you no longer have to be alone. You now have support whenever you need it to make sure that you can get off that stuck point and into your flow. And just to be clear, when I say ChatGPT, I mean it very much in the best sense of the word, not the specific tool from OpenAI, but the same way that we say Kleenex or Xerox or Jell-O to represent a category. So if you prefer you or Bing Chat or Bard or Yudely, absolutely use any of those because these same techniques are going to help in every one of those situations. So let's talk exactly about how these tools can help you get ready for interviews. And let's start by understanding the biggest pain point of the person on the other side of the table. There was a survey of 2,000 hiring managers, and there was one thing the candidates did that drove them crazy more than anything else. What do you think it is? Was it that flimsy dead fish handshake? Was it a lack of knowledge about the company and the role? Or was it that dreaded Mona Lisa smile, basically a non-smile? So A, B, or C, what is driving hiring managers
Jeremy,
crazy?
I'm seeing a bunch of people, especially Rosalind, with a D, all of the above.
Yeah, that's right. And I think as a hiring manager myself, I know Varun is in the same boat. Sometimes all these things can drive us crazy. But at least based on this particular survey, having a lack of expertise, sort of general ignorance about the role and the opportunity just is a complete waste of time. And the reason that I bring this up is that no one should have to do that anymore in an age when you have this personal assistant to help you get ready for prime time. So to show you how it works, I would love one lucky volunteer to raise their hand right now on Zoom. Whomever is first will get a copy of this book sent right to you, and we'll demonstrate how to get you ready for prime time. And Khaled, you were first this time, so I'm going to give you the ability. Okay, Khaled, can you turn on your microphone?
Hi there.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing awesome. Khaled, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you in your career? What are you thinking about in terms of next steps?
Let me see if I can turn my camera on too.
Oh, beautiful.
Hang on 1 second. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, I can see you right now.
I can't see myself, but if you can see me, that's great. Thank you.
You got a nice red jacket as well. It's a great look.
It's right. You're
Yes,
coming through
thank
loud
you.
and clear.
Thank you. I'm actually not looking for anything in particular, but very interested in hiring people. I work in the financial services field and constantly looking to increase the practice, trying to understand how AI can help, just connecting us with the right people for the right role. So that's basically my story.
I love that. And so what are the particular roles that you're looking to hire for?
So typically we're in the service industry, so it would be either administrative or client facing.
Client facing. Okay, very cool. And so the first thing I'll say is that ChatGPT is really good at just generating random stuff. So for example, again, I want everyone to try this on their own screens. You could absolutely come in here and say, generate some interview questions to practice as if you were getting ready for your own interview, Khaled. And it'll give you some stuff, tell me about a time you did this, tell me about a time you did that. But I think the real power of AI is the fact that it can do personalization at scale, give you advice that is specific to that role. So let me actually go and find a role that might be comparable. And so we'll head over to Indeed. And so would you say this would be like a financial services? What would be like the exact job title that you're thinking of here?
So I would say financial planner. I would say financial administrator, investment advisor, something of that.
So like here's financial advisor at New York Life, obviously, a player in that space. And the really cool thing is, even though as job seekers, we tend to dread job descriptions are like manna from heaven for ChatGPT. Because now we can say, generate 10 specific questions for this specific role. And watch what happens this time. Instead of random stuff like what motivates you to do your best work, it's going to say, what interests you about the insurance agent role in New York Life? What experience do you have in sales or customer relationship management? And Khaled, where is it coming from? Where is this data and this personalization being driven by?
Good question. I'm assuming hundreds, if not thousands, of other job offerings.
Exactly. It scraped all of Greenhouse, all of Glassdoor, all of these sites where interview questions are listed. And it says, aha, when there are things like CRM that are listed in the job description, we know this is the way that interviewers tend to like to ask that question. And so all of a sudden, you have this really good list to start with. And so you're not just starting with this totally blank slate, but you're starting with specificity. You're starting with personalization, which means you're already 10 steps ahead of every other job seeker. So far, so good, Khaled?
Amazing, yeah.
Okay, so that's the first step.
So basically, the more you specify, the better.
Exactly. And I will be really clear too. There's two levels of specificity you can feed into AI. One is just sort of general context, like here's the job description or here's my resume. But you can always push it in kind of a dialogic way as opposed to just getting one-stop answers. So you could say, give me more specific questions about CRM. Maybe that's the thing that you have nightmares about as a job seeker, right? And so now it says, okay, I'm going to really dive even deeper into that field and pull out even more specific stuff. So never feel like, hey, whatever I get right now is the only thing I have to go on. Instead, push it more and more and more, because it's always happy to go deeper and deeper. So that's the first step. Now, Colette, I've got a question for you and everyone on the line, which is, if you had to guess, what percentage of interviewers make up their minds in the first 5 minutes? And I should actually say, what percentage of interviewers admit to making up their minds in the first 5 minutes? Everyone comes to the chat. Give me your best guess. Is it 10%, 50%, somewhere a little higher or lower? What do you think, Colin?
I'd say probably 50%.
50%. And you nailed it. 50% of interviewers in a recent survey from Indeed admitted that in the first 5 minutes, the interview is essentially over. They're either in or they're out. Everything else is just getting the data to confirm my assumption. Now, I suspect, and the reason I emphasize admit, is the number is actually much higher. And why do you think that is, Colin? Why do you think there's such a rush to judgment?
Yeah, I think we're just emotional beings. And I work in a field where people make decisions based on emotions and then use logic to kind of justify after the fact.
Exactly. It's like that famous book, Blink, from Malcolm Gladwell, right? As a species, we've developed the survival mechanism of needing to make split-second decisions. Is this person a friend or a foe? Should I partner with them or should I flee? And I think as much as we tell our emotional side from our rational side, hey, be objective, go through the process, we can't help but, again, rushing to judgment, because that's just the way we're wired. And so the reality is, so many job seekers spend all this time obsessing about case questions or estimation questions, or even what they're going to put in their thank you letter. But Khaled, based on what we just talked about, do those questions even really matter if they're asked in minute 25 or minute 55?
You're right. Less relevant, of course.
Exactly. So it probably still matter a little bit, but at that point, people have pretty set judgments, which means, what do you think is the most important interview question in any interview, Khaled? Or do any folks know in the chat?
Why do you want the job, maybe?
Why do you want the job? Or in other words, tell me about yourself, right? And Priyanka said that, and Parth said that, and Judy said that, because every interview starts the same way. And so often we just sort of disregard it as a throwaway question. No, just an icebreaker, then we'll get down to the real stuff. But if it takes about 5 minutes to ask and then answer that question, guess what? Ding, 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 your time is up. So you better nail that first question. So now, imagine that you were interviewing for your own firm, Colin. And I said, just tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself as a financial planner or someone interested in my company. What's your natural instinct? How would you want to answer that question?
Yeah, from a practical, not a life perspective, but more of here's my job, here's what I did in the past, here's the type of responsibilities I've held.
Yeah. And so I think that's the natural instinct of everyone, is you're going to answer somewhat chronologically, right? You know, maybe here's my last job, here's what I did, here's the job before that, here's what I studied in school. Either one way or the other, you're kind of covering your entire bio. But now, this is going to sound a little crazy. Think about this. You are the hiring manager, Colin. This is a perfect question. If you could hire anyone from The Simpsons, and you'll see exactly where I'm headed with this in a second, would you rather hire Homer, Lisa, or Mr. Burns? So everyone give me your best guess in the chat, or your personal preference. And Colin, I don't know if you're a Simpson fan, but who's your natural instinct?
It's not going to be Homer.
Okay, and why not? Why not?
He doesn't work. He just sits around and eats donuts.
Yep.
Probably Lisa.
Probably Lisa. And Leslie agrees, and Suzanne agrees, and Eva agrees. Why is Lisa so popular? Why does she make so much sense as a hire?
She's pretty smart.
Pretty smart. Anything else? Mr. Burns is smart, right? I mean, Lisa's smart, but has Lisa accumulated billions by monopolizing the nuclear power industry?
No, Mr. Burns is evil, and he has talent.
Okay, so Mr. Burns is highly competent, but actually incredibly cold. So that's interesting. Whereas Lisa might be in that sweet spot. And it turns out, based on 20 years of recent sociological research, that pretty much all human judgments of other humans, those gut instincts we were just talking about, boil down to two snap instincts. Number one, do they seem competent? And that's the thing that we normally assume is so critical in an interview. Do you know what you're talking about? Are you organized? Are you clear? But also, do you seem warm? Would I actually want to do the job with you? And so the reason that Mr. Burns is not in that top right quadrant where you want to be is that ultimately he's competent, but lacking in warmth. And so this is that sweet spot of nailing both dimensions. And so I would argue that if you just go in and give a general sort of, here's everything I've done in my career leading up to today, that ultimately comes across as somewhat incompetent because the structure is kind of stream of consciousness style. And number two, most deadly, completely cold. Like you want to fall in love with this person on the other side of the table, Khaled. You said it's an emotional decision, and yet they're just rambling off stuff like they are a robot. Does that feel incredibly engaging to you as an interviewer?
Not at all.
No way. And so what seems really safe to us as job seekers is actually a trap, because in the first 5 minutes, we've just blown those critical first impressions. On the other hand, if you were to lead with something that's driven by passion and excitement, like all my life, I really want to blend technology and education to serve kids who are under-resourced all around the world, that's a lot more clear, a lot more exciting. And then if you can back it up with real examples, all the more compelling, all the more competent. And I think if you have a structured approach that is twinned with warmth and passion, that is the sweet spot. That's the Lisa Simpson square in the quadrant. Now, Khaled, tell me this. If you wanted to get feedback on how you're delivering this answer, who could you turn to? Who's in your corner at all times of day and night?
Khaled, this one's a trick question. There's only one right answer.
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, exactly. So let's try this. Let's say, here's a sample answer to tell me about yourself. We'll say, I went to school to study finance. Now I'm a financial planner, and I'm so excited to continue on this path. And I know this is kind of a very short version. Obviously, my typing skills need a little velocity. You could say, please evaluate this answer based on its warmth and competence. Let's see what comes up here. Aha, this answer may be considered competent, but lacking warmth. So you are competent in the sense that you address, yeah, I'm a financial planner, I have experience. But to add warmth, maybe you could talk about what drew you to finance, what your favorite aspect of the job is. Why are you motivated to continue? And so I would encourage you, Khaled, to whenever you are thinking about what really is going to make you successful as an interviewee, if you're ever in that role, or even how you want to evaluate your interviewees, let ChatGPT give you a little bit of that third-party analysis. How does that sound?
That's amazing. Actually, I didn't know it could do that.
Yeah. And then what you could even do, just to make it even more fancy, is you could say, now generate an answer to that question that is more warm and leverages details from my resume. So now we're getting really interesting, right? More specificity, more context, and bam, look what it comes up with. I'm an experienced marketing leader with a passion for driving massive results. It starts with that passion, and it gives a real sense of what I've done that is a way more competent, way more believable than someone who just says, yeah, I'm a good guy, trust me. So I highly, highly agree that, Khaled, this is in your corner. And the real question is how you can use it to be super effective. So that being said, Khaled, do you have any questions about this? Any questions about how you might use it as an interviewee or an interviewer?
Also, if there are questions in the chat, please feel free to add them.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
So it's actually quite scary. I didn't know that it can start measuring warmth and competence. I thought it just basically takes out text that's studied and spits it back to you. But now there's an element of judgment in here. How far can you take it would be my question.
Yeah. Make it warmer and friendlier, right? Again, everything is a dialogue, not a monologue. Hi there, I'm so excited to chat with you, right? It's like learning to sort of be a little bit more human. And obviously, it's never going to replace real human career coaches who can give you that sort of indescribable human spark. But you've probably seen that for at least a decade now, there have been AI models that can grade tweets or other texts based on their sentiment. Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it happy? Is it sad? And that same underlying technology is also driving this. So Khalid, I have to give you a massive shout out and a massive thank you. I am sending you a copy of this book and all of my gratitude. You rocked it today, Khalid.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And everyone give Khalid tons of love because he was awesome.
Woohoo!
Okay, Varun, what kinds of questions are you seeing in the chat? What's top of mind for folks?
All kinds of fun stuff. How does ChatGPT access my resume? What about my privacy? Where is my data going?
Yeah, great question. So Suzanne, thank you for asking that. And I want to be really clear that I gave it the resume. I just plugged it in manually. So it's not grabbing it off the internet or something like that. That being said, it is true that ChatGPT could use the material you share to train future versions of the model. As an example, there was someone at Samsung who shared information about an unreleased new product that then got displayed in future prompts outside the company. So I would not share anything with ChatGPT today that you don't want shared with someone else. Now, hopefully your resume, which is already on your LinkedIn profile, is not going to be super secretive. But if there is anything very confidential, please keep it off ChatGPT. Now, OpenAI has announced they have a new ChatGPT for business that's about to come out that will allow you to turn off that and say, hey, do not build your model on my data, but that is not quite out yet. Any other thoughts there, Varun?
No, that's exactly it. ChatGPT is building this new ChatGPT incognito version that should be out in the next couple months. But given their speed, maybe next few weeks.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe one last question before I turn it over to Varun. Any other questions, Varun, that were super juicy?
There were good questions on what's the best way to input my resume into ChatGPT. And I think you just copy pasted your bullet points, correct?
Exactly. Just so you can see here, I just took it right out of the PDF, pasted it right in. You could grab it off LinkedIn, wherever it's convenient. And the critical thing is just that it has something to go on. You know, we've all heard at this point about the hallucinations that AI models have. And in my experience so far, they tend to pop up the most when you give it the least data, because it always wants to serve, it's eager to please. And so it wants to give you some kind of answer. But if it doesn't have a lot to go on, it tends to veer off beyond the realm of facts. So give it as much objective data as you can, and it will tend to be a little more focused. And with that said, speaking of focus, I am so excited for you to learn about how to take your warmth, your competence, and your overall interview skill to the next level with this incredible new tool that Varun and his team have built. So Varun, please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. Awesome. If folks have questions, please add them to the chat. I'll give you all the quick passion story behind Yudely. That's the exciting part. And then we'll get into a demonstration, and hopefully this is fun. How many of you all have heard of Grammarly? Raise of hands. Folks in the chat, etc. A lot of folks. The idea behind Yudely is, can we build Grammarly for speech? When I was at Google, I got really frustrated that, the engineers would do all of the hard work, and then someone who would speak the most would get the credit and the promotion. And I just think it's so unfair. We see this across the world, right? A woman who gets talked over in corporate America, the kid from India, a non-native English speaker who deserves a McKinsey job way more than anyone else, but just doesn't back themselves while speaking. The dream behind Yudely is, can we use artificial intelligence and the power of ChatGPT to help people communicate with confidence? For this webinar, I'll talk about the interview application, but this is anytime you're speaking. Yudely gives you private, real-time, judgment-free feedback on your eye contact, body language, tone, pitch, intonation. I like to think of Yudely as your friend or your spouse who pokes you under the table when you make a faux pas. Jeremy, his name is Rob, not Bob. Or someone in the audience who's like, hey, you gotta be louder. Or your smart mirror that's private and judgment-free. Okie dokie, I am going to share my screen. Actually, before that, I know we have a lot of career coaches in the audience. Let's say I've got this upcoming job interview at Google. I'm just graduating from college. I am so nervous to be a product manager at Google. What's the first question outside of tell me about yourself that we think a Google interviewer might ask me? Answers in the chat. Jeremy, feel free to throw yours out as well.
And Varun, does Google still ask those questions like, if you were shrunk down to the size of an ant and put in a blender, what are the chances of your escape?
They officially, they're not supposed to, but they absolutely do. during my Google interview, I was in front of a whiteboard and my interviewer tossed me a marker and said, go draw your personality on the whiteboard. And I was like, what? So then I come up with something and he's like, okay, great. Now draw your personality 10 years from now on the whiteboard. Anyhow, that's for a different story. Okie dokie. So Paul says, why do you love Google? Awesome, Paul. I know I'm going to get that question. I am so nervous. ChatGPT can help me come up with the answer, but I've got to deliver it. I have this massive fear of speaking. Now we get into our demo. This is Yudely. You can access it for free at yudely.ai. For those of you all who are familiar with Toastmasters, they're using this with 300,000 members globally. Most major business schools, corporations, etc., are using Yudely. It is free of cost. Okie dokie. So I come to Yudely. I sign in. I can practice for a speech, interview, whatever. I could go through random question banks where Yudely will simulate a mock interview for me. And I can say, well, I want to practice a generic interview and I want my interviewer to be very stressful. And then I'll get grilled with specific questions. But let's say I want to practice my own questions. Why do you love, or why do you want to work at Google? Why do you want to work at Google? Now, to be clear, I'm showing you the interview application, but you could do this for any conversation. Why do you deserve a salary? Why did you break up with me? What's the weather like? This is a mock conversational practice tool. I'm going to come and I'm going to start practicing. I'm quite nervous, but hey, I got to shoot my shot. Hi, interviewer, I just, really want to work at Google. I hear you give free massages and you've got really nice shuttles and the perks are amazing. And it just looks really good on my resume. And, my parents in India would be so proud of me if I got a job at Google and, I just bring synergy and innovation and disruption. Please hire me. Okay, that's my answer. It's not the best in the world. Great, right? Yudely understood the context of what I said and gave me a follow-up question. It's like a great question. I have so much experience for Google and now I'm just nervous. So I'm talking really, really quickly. Before this, I used to work at Amazon and Microsoft and I've been in the tech industry for so long. And, I'm just saying all kinds of, shit. Okay, I've got to relax and breathe. This was my sample speech. Okay, I'm messing around, but you get the gist of it, right? Yudely understands the context of what I say and gives me follow-up questions. I'm going to stop this right here. When I'm done, I can click on save recording or save interview. Here's where the magic of AI gets really fun. Yudely is my private judgment-free coach. So it instantly generates a transcript of what I did with each question with a series of analytics to help me improve. So the AI system automatically detected the content of my speech and named it Google Job Goals. And then I can see how I did on my why do you want to work at Google question. Whoa, I had 11% filler words. I'm going out of control with my you-knows. I've got to be careful. In fact, at the click of a button, I can play back my interview with all my filler words removed so I can see what I can sound like if I were more confident. Or I don't have a stutter, but when I'm nervous, I say the same words back to back. I've got to stop rambling. And then I've got a lot more analytics, right? My use of non-inclusive language. I said the word shit, like that could be profane, not cool for an interview. Lots of weak words, really kind of basically. Look, I'm a big Kim Kardashian fan, but I tied with her on my use of weak language. I should just be mindful of this. And then I've got feedback on my pacing, smiles, eye contact. We can see exactly where I got nervous and started talking too quickly. And, I just bring synergy and innovation and and suddenly I go through the charts. Anyhow, it gets really fun when, getting analytics on the way I speak is helpful. It's like a medical report. Varun, here's your tone, pitch, intonation, etc. For those of you all who use Strava, the fitness app, I think of this as my quick dashboard. But my AI speech coach can now start giving me some magical feedback like, hey, Varun, you had your talking points. Here's what your recruiter took away. You want to work at Google because you're interested in the perks. Yep, that was my message. I acknowledge I need to relax and breathe. Yep, I was pretty nervous. But my AI speech coach helps me practice more questions. Varun, remember, you might get this as a follow-up question to your first answer. Can you tell me more about your specific skills and not the perks, and how can you contribute to Google? Or even better, Varun, you use this filler word 8 times. What's really interesting is I can go to Yudely and say, look, Yudely, I had this one answer over here. Can you help me rephrase that into something more concise? And boom, 3, 2, 1, I should get a more concise answer automatically generated for me. Like, it seems like you're very interested in Google. Here's why, etc. I could rephrase what I said into a limerick. I could rephrase it in simple terms. So these are for questions like, explain the cloud to your grandma or to a 5-year-old. Anyhow, I've always said the goal behind Yudely is to augment the work of human coaches. I think Yudely is great. I think AI in general is amazing, but it is not here to replace any human coaches. So we're working with TEDx coaches, career services centers, freelance interview coaches, etc. Let me pick someone. Adam, you're on my screen. Do you mind giving me your email? Let's say you're my coach. Oh, sorry, I put you on the spot. Unacceptable. Okay, but you're smiling. Okay. I can't hear you, Adam.
There it is.
Oh, it's in the chat. Oh, there we go. Ishpal@UMD. So look, I've got this upcoming interview, everyone. I am freaking out. I've been trying to schedule an interview with my career services department, but it takes too long to schedule. And the career services person I got scheduled with was mean to me. I don't want to go. But Adam is my mentor. I've practiced 500 times with AI. I'm feeling a little better. I've got the courage. I'm like, Adam, oh my God, dream Google interview tomorrow. Freaking out. Please help. Okay, whatever. You get the gist of it. For those of you who've used Google Drive, whatever, it's exactly the same. So I've shared my speech with Adam, and Adam, my coach, can now come in and give me feedback. Varun, start with the STAR method. Hi, interviewer, I just, you need a better background. I don't know. But the idea here is I can share my speech with as many folks as I want, my friends, colleagues, girlfriend, career services mentors, and they can all give me feedback that is time-stamped to specific video frames, right? So Gregory in this chat is at UW Foster Business School. The way he uses it is all the UW students practice with AI, send it to Gregory, and Gregory in his pajamas can give everyone asynchronous feedback. And when they come in for live sessions, they can focus on the higher level stuff. There's a lot more to Yudely. I won't bore you with that. The tool is free. Gregory, anything to add on your workflow with the back and forth collaboration?
Yeah, so I also use it during live sessions conducted over Zoom to record the session in real time, both so that the student can see what they've said, as well as the metrics in terms of speed, and they get the recording as well as the transcript of the feedback that I give them. So it becomes a really helpful way for us both to be present in the moment rather than trying to scribble notes down furiously.
That's a really good point, Gregory. I won't go into all of the details, but context here is you can use Yudely during your live interviews, and Yudely will give everyone analytics on what they said and how they spoke. In fact, we've built a private version of Yudely, like Grammarly, right? Grammarly at 3 a.m. ensures I don't send a drunk message to my manager and makes me look smart when I mess up your versus Y-O-U, whatever, apostrophe R-E. Yudely now does the same thing. So I'm on this call. I'm actually getting real-time alerts from Yudely saying, Varun, slow down, stop rambling. It's only analyzing my voice. Nobody knows I'm using it. It's like my cheat sheet during interviews. When you sign up, you can see that. I'm going to show one last thing, Jeremy, and then I'll open it up for questions. The idea here is too many folks don't struggle with the ums and ahs and whatnot. They struggle with self-doubt, right? Like people want to work with people who are funny. I think Jeremy does this really well. My dream with Yudely is how do we take speech coaching and interview coaching and just make people have a good time with it? If we can crack that, I think we will help a lot of people. So we built a bunch of games, and for universities, we customize this where you're suddenly put on the spot, right? Far too often you get a question and then you lose your train of thought and then you're all over the place. This game is to help you be quick on your feet. So I'm going to get a random topic. I'm putting myself on the spot and I'm just going to go. An important skill that new generations are not learning is to be funny. I think far too often we put plastic in our brains and we overthink life far too often because we live on our calendar. If we were a little bit more spontaneous, we could smell and see the shape of the world and the beauty around us. You get the gist of it. I'm getting words as I include it into my story. I get points at the end and I get a score. So idea here is, look, I'm applying for a McKinsey interview. I'll get words like synergy, large tech, pharmaceutical, and I'm just going to include them into my story. Jeremy, I said lots of things. I'm going to pause now and would love to open it up to any questions. And Jeremy, feel free to grill me on stuff as well.
Yeah, this is amazing. So first of all, someone said the future is now. I think Varun, you've definitely dragged us into the 21st century for real. So we really appreciate that. The big elephant in the room question that everyone's asking is, this is amazing. Why is it free? Are you grabbing all of our videos and then going to blackmail our students 20 years later when they're super successful? What's going on here?
No, I'm just running a charity. I'm joking. This is being recorded. Like our investors might see it. To be totally honest, we're an early stage startup. My goal is to get this in the hands of millions of people, have them loving and using it, and we will put some kind of subscription in place. For most enterprises, universities, etc., we build them a white label version with their SSO and whatnot. But I don't want price to be the reason that stops a kid in India from using it. So it's free of cost. We will add a paywall. To the other question of what are you doing with our data? Like what's your malevolent intent? You own your data, you can delete your videos when you want. All of the privacy sharing settings are modeled off Google Drive. You can control who accesses your speeches and whatnot. And I've also put this in very simple English, not in legal English, at yudely.ai/privacy.
Awesome. And then a couple questions about the people who are using it. Have you tested it with people who are not speaking English as a first language, who have stutters or other speech disfluencies? Is it able to recognize their speech?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we've got, thousands and thousands of speech language pathologists who are using this with, folks who struggle with a stroke or have a stutter. I'll be the first to say Yudely is not a medical tool. Do not use it like that. I'm not a medical professional. We do not have HIPAA compliance, but I think lots of folks are using it for their own application where they see it's useful, right? In the case of the speech language pathologist or the career counselor, the analogy I really like is Yudely is never going to replace you. If you are the accountant, Yudely is TurboTax. If you're the electrician, Yudely is your power drill, right? If you're the blog writer, Yudely is your GPT extension that helps you move faster.
That's awesome. And so Jill had asked the question, which is, can either of these craft a written resume or a LinkedIn profile? So I just want to share one little bonus goodie here before we go into a final Q&A. And that is that as you're helping your students, if you're a career coach, get ready and get practice, or if you are a job seeker yourself and you're getting ready for prime time, just know that you have a number of resources at your disposal. So first of all, you can always connect with either of us. And I would highly encourage everyone in higher ed, please, please, please reach out to Varun, because if you want to do a white label version of this or bring this to your students, Varun is just one of the best people I've met in the space. And I think Gregory can attest to that. So feel free to connect with me. Feel free to connect with Varun at any point. So that's the first thing. Now, to answer Jill's question, if you want to do even more with ChatGPT to get the interview in the first place, can absolutely help with all of that. You could certainly say, generate a resume that includes XYZ. But to make it a little bit easier, Gregory and I have been playing around with this new Google Sheets plugin that allows you to harness the power of ChatGPT inside a more sort of convenient format. And so what you can do with this tool that we call CareerBot 3000 is you could have a student who says, there are 3 things that are really driving my job search. First of all, I want work-life balance. I want to make sure that I have time for my family, time for the people who are really important to me. I also make sure that I have to have high compensation because that's going to be really critical for paying off all my student loans. And then finally, I need to make sure that I'm close to New York City because that's where my family is. So you come over here, you paste in your existing resume, your non-AI version, just to be clear. And what you do is you basically allow the sort of ChatGPT index, if you will, to go to bat and start to say, okay, what do we know about different jobs? So here are a couple different roles that could be really good fit for Jeremy. Maybe I'm interested in becoming a social media manager. Maybe I'm ready to go live on TikTok. So if I want to learn more about that role, it'll do a couple things for me. It'll generate my most important keywords. So we all know as career coaches and job seekers, the keywords are everything because the original AI in the career space is the applicant tracking system, the thing that's scanning your resume to see whether you belong in that interview room. So make sure you nail those keywords, make sure you understand the job, make sure that your resume incorporates those things, as does your cover letter, and then even get ready for prime time with some interview prep. So if you want to get access to any of that, it's all free for a lifetime at the link in the chat. And then finally, if you want to get Yudely, as we've talked about, is also free. So please, please, please come over to the link in the chat and get started with that. Now, with that said, let's take some questions, Varun, because I know there are probably a million questions about, is ChatGPT really effective for finding the right role in the first place? Is Yudely a good tool for X, Y, or Z? So let's start with this.
Totally. And as folks are thinking of questions, I'll just brain dump obvious ones we get. What about privacy? Does this work for non-native English speakers? Can you give me feedback on my upspeak or vocal fry? Does this help with presentations? Nothing is off limits. Can we get a recording of this session? Jeremy, that's a you question.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely being recorded, and we'll share that out right after the session, along with all the links as well. So you have that as well. Let's go to this question. Davina says, any tips for using ChatGPT for cover letters? Now we're getting into the real nitty gritty here. Varun, you've probably played around with this, or maybe you've had people who apply for jobs at Yudely using ChatGPT generated cover letters. Any thoughts?
Yes, but please do so intelligently. Like, it's extremely obvious when someone has, ChatGPT-fied their cover letter. Jeremy, looks like you're doing it right now. Summary would be, use this to overcome writer's block and to get your first draft in, and then tweak it based on your interests, etc.
Right.
And please make it personalized.
As you can see, the default version that it spits out, super generic, not going to knock anyone's socks off. However, imagine you say, generate a cover letter for this role. Again, we're giving specificity, right? So we plug in the job description with details from my resume, plug in my CV, and then bam, we've got something that is way more specific because it's actually targeting a specific role with specific detail. And of course, you want to come back in and make sure it didn't hallucinate anything, didn't mislead. But I guarantee you, because I've done this so much already, that as a hiring manager at Khan Academy, where I get awful cover letters every single day, this is already better than 90% of the cover letters out there, which means that if you're a career coach, you don't have to start from scratch with grammar and mechanics. You can basically add the finishing touches when you're working with your students. So you get to do the stuff you really love, not all the stuff that's painful. Great question. Okay, what's the next question, Varun? What did you see in the chat that would be super exciting?
There's a good one in the chat from Alice saying, how does Yudely compare to Big Interview and Platform? Big Interview is another awesome AI-powered interview tool. Feel free to check it out. The idea behind Yudely is we are very AI focused and built on top of GPT. So there's a lot more back and forth in terms of mock simulations, asynchronous collaboration with your career coach and counselor. And look, my dream behind Yudely is for this not just to be an interview tool, right? We are speaking across our day-to-day lives. If we do this well, the university students should use Yudely to practice for their accounting presentation and then their job interview, and then use it during their actual job interview. I think a lot of other tools are very focused on just the interview, but another great tool.
Awesome.
And Yudely is free right now.
Let's see here. This is a good question for you, Varun. Are there any tools or software out there that recognize when ChatGPT has been involved in the writing? So basically, trying to make sure that students are not turning in ChatGPT driven essays, things like that. Have you heard of stuff like that?
I'm not using any, but I know that a lot of startups are working on this misinformation problem, and nothing comes to mind right now.
Okay. And I know that yeah, there are some of those players in the plagiarism space that are now trying to upgrade their models to not just focus on general plagiarism, but AI prompted plagiarism. So I love that. Let's see here.
Jeremy, there's an interesting one from Ariana, which says, these are amazing tools. Varun, I'd like to hear how I can use Yudely during my actual interview.
Ooh.
Okay, Doki, I'm going to put myself on the spot. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, go for it.
Can folks see my screen? Jeremy, let's say this is a mock interview.
Yeah.
I'm going to start Yudely. Can you grill me a little bit?
Okay. So first of all, Varun, what makes you think that you're qualified for this job?
I'm just so passionate. I bring passion and energy and enthusiasm, and I just think I'm a nice guy to be around.
Can you tell us more about that passion? Where does it come from?
Okay, here, now I'll deviate a little bit. Anyhow, so to the person who asked a question, I'm currently using Yudely during my live interview. We're making the real-time alerts better, but Yudely gives me gentle nudges. It tells me, okay, my talk time is at 80%. I've got to stop monopolizing this conversation. I've got to stop talking. At the end of my interview, when I'm done, it takes a second or so. Yudely will instantly give me analytics on how I did. When I press see all insights, I will only get my transcript and my analytics. So Jeremy's voice never hit my system. And what's interesting here is this was how I did on my actual interview. And I can now send it to my coach saying, listen, we did a bunch of mock sessions. Here's what actually happened. Can you help me out? So it's changing the way we think about communication, which is I can always be analyzing my voice. Hopefully this answers the question, and here I can send it to someone. Shirley, on my screen, do you mind sharing your email? Oh, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I was just going to send my email to someone to give me like asynchronous feedback. Oh, there we go. Ariana, I've got yours. So I'll send it to Ariana. My Jeremy interview, I thought he was mean and asked me hard questions.
What a jerk.
What would he, I know, let me actually add that as well. What a jerk. Can you help? And then, Ariana can go in and start giving me feedback, the usual stuff. Varun, you were nervous here. Unlike practice session. Whatever, you get the gist of it, and then the same functionality exists.
Okay, so I think there's a really juicy question that Trish asked, and then multiple people thumbed up, which was, should you be transparent about using ChatGPT? Like, should you tell the recruiter, hey, I use ChatGPT on my cover letter? Now, I'm going to share something a little controversial with y'all, and I want to hear Varun's take, and I also want to hear your takes in the chat. As a hiring manager for the marketing team at Khan Academy, I would actually be really upset if my teammates were not using ChatGPT. I have people who are generating emails, social media posts, all these things. And if they are spending all this time doing stuff that the AI could actually do better and help them do faster, then ultimately they're not being as effective as possible. They're not using our scarce nonprofit resources to make as big an impact in the world for kids' lives as they could. Because that is so important for me on the job, I am totally open and happy if people use ChatGPT in their job applications, because that tells me they are already understand these critical 21st century skills. I don't want to have to train them on these things. I want them to come in day one ready. But again, that's just my take as one random hiring manager in Silicon Valley. What do you think, Varun?
I mean, I completely echo that, right? I use Grammarly all the time. I don't need to tell someone about it. Or, hey, I grew up with privilege and I had access to a career coach who gave me advice. Or at Claremont McKenna, I had someone nudging me on the side. I didn't feel the need to tell that to an interview, to a hiring manager when there were other candidates who didn't have access to it. My take is these are all parts of your toolkit, and any hiring manager expects you to have this on your fingertips at all times. It would be a red flag for me if I didn't see that kind of hustle because they weren't doing everything they can to get the job in an ethical way, of course.
Absolutely. And I want to be really clear here that if someone's using ChatGPT and they generate a crappy cover letter or a crappy, work product, then that still reflects poorly on them. They can't just blame the AI. But I think it's that fusion of human skills and ingenuity with this new technological resource that produces the best possible outcome.
Oh,
and I
totally.
think,
in fact, Jeremy, you look a million times worse if you use AI and use it badly. Like
exactly. That's
university courses on how to effectively use this.
Yeah. And I think Dan P nailed it. Dan is on the cutting edge because he says people are so worried about being replaced by AI in their jobs. What they should really worry about is being replaced by another person who's better at using AI. In the same way that computer skills or public speaking skills or whatever are how we level up as a species, I think AI is just one more step in that direction. Okay, great question from Yaniv, which was upvoted by Kyle. How can ChatGPT be leveraged to negotiate job offers? Any thoughts there, Varun?
I mean, I was going to give you the same demo, right? Like Yudely is, and this is not even a Yudely sales pitch. It's why we built it. It's ChatGPT, but for conversation skills. Let's say I've got, I won't go through the entire demo, but let's open Chrome, go back to Yudely. Let's say I want to practice an interview or a conversation. I do the exact same thing. I'd say, why do you deserve a salary raise? And boom, I would practice that question. And AI would keep having this conversation with me until I completely struggle. So totally makes sense. And ChatGPT can help you with the answer.
And then I would add in that if you are looking to get help even before you get into the negotiation, you can certainly always come to ChatGPT. But here is a big warning. As folks have mentioned in the chat, ChatGPT's data is all from 2021 and before. So if you want the latest comps, this is what Google's paying in 2023, this is what Facebook's paying, you don't want to go to ChatGPT. However, that's about to change. And so what you may have noticed is that I am using ChatGPT Plus, which gives you access to a couple of additional features. In this case, I can use the ChatGPT model with web browsing. So instead of being restricted just to what data existed in 2021, it can now go on the web and start to pull in live data. So what is the current salary for a product manager in Seattle? And then what it's going to start to do is not just give you 2021 outdated information, it's going to run that search and then fuse that in with all of its existing context to give you the best possible result. So still very much an alpha product. In other words, not necessarily ready for prime time, but look at this. This is sort of the future of AI right here. I think all AI, because it's sort of questioning the credibility today, is going to start to have to produce footnotes that take you to actual live sites, because otherwise people are always going to doubt, where is this data coming from? So more and more, we're going to ask our AI models to be super transparent with us to avoid that hallucination.
Jeremy, can I add something super controversial to
do.
this? I wrote a blog post about this a few days ago. I think we are
Ooh.
moving into a world where the content of what you say will likely lose significance, which is, I'm a McKinsey candidate. I'm in my job interview. You know, my interviewers ask me how many, whatever, ping pong balls will fit in a Boeing 747. With the speed at which AI is moving, I will have that answer pop up on my screen instantaneously. Or I'm a car sales manager and someone's asking me, why should I buy the car? I will get contextual prompts in the moment to tell me what to say. That's got all the most up-to-date information. I think what's going to separate high performers from the rest is the way we convey that message. Like, can you say it with authenticity and gusto and passion, which is why in this AI first world, the humanity of being human is even more important. I don't know, what do you think, Jeremy?
Oh, 100%. I think that's exactly where the world is headed. And every day is sort of one more step in that direction. Here's another interesting question. Daniel Pack over at Syracuse says, there's a great YouTube vid from a Harvard Business School professor that I always recommend to students. Could ChatGPT watch the video and then offer advice based on the content of that video? This is interesting. What do you think, Varun?
It can actually. This one's a pro tip about ChatGPT. If you take any YouTube video link, I don't know if you've done this, Jeremy. If you take any YouTube video link, paste it into ChatGPT and tell ChatGPT to summarize it, you no longer need to watch videos.
Oh,
so you
my
can ask
goodness.
ChatGPT to critique like whatever this video is.
Right. Because every video has a transcript attached to it that Google's AI has automatically generated. So you
Exactly.
say, generate a summary. Let's just try it out.
Yeah,
I've never done this before.
There's a specific prompt, because I remember I was playing around with this so that I didn't have to watch a bunch of videos.
Okay, so here we go. I think this is a video I might have done recently. So let's see what happens. And again, this is the one that's browsing the web. Cannot access this.
Well, maybe Jeremy, if the video is before 2021. But
okay.
I've used this a bunch of times and it is scary. Also, like very soon, ChatGPT will be able to understand audio and video content as well. So
right. And so what you could do in the meantime, this is a little workaround, and you can see my daughter loves gymnastics, is you could come over here and say, hey, let me just grab the transcript. And then once you have that transcript, you could plug that back in and feed it into ChatGPT. So take this and then generate a summary. And I will say that if you do this with videos or if you do this with long web articles, it is pretty good. Would you agree, Varun?
Oh, totally.
Okay.
I think the biggest value out of ChatGPT, like this is a pretty long summary, is give me the 3 bullet point theory.
Yeah, now put it into a haiku. Right, there we go. A little dark, but hey, that's where YouTube is these days, apparently. Okay.
Hey, Jeremy, I got a good question in the chat on, hey, I'm worried about privacy with that private mode that you showed, Varun. It's a really good question, right? With Yudely, we're pushing the frontiers of both product and legal, which is when I'm in a conversation, typically if I'm recording 2 people, I obviously need to get multi-party consent. Like regardless of what the legal stuff says, I believe ethically you've got to do it. But with Yudely, we've built machine learning models that only detect my voice and give me feedback. So as an example, if I'm in a board meeting and I'm extremely nervous with all the VCs around, Yudely pings me on my Apple Watch based on what I said and tells me, Varun, you missed key point number 2. And from a privacy standpoint, if Yudely is only analyzing my voice and nobody else's voice ever hits our systems, that is okay.
That's awesome. Okay, I know that we're approaching the end here. We may have exhausted all possible questions about AI. Obviously, you can ask ChatGPT directly for any questions you didn't get to ask today. Varun, any final words of wisdom that you want to leave folks with? Like, how can they engage with you? How could higher ed take advantage of Yudely? Like other things that people should be thinking about as we enter this bold new era?
Totally. First of all, I don't think I have wisdom. I'm a first-time founder. We're an early startup. We don't have all of the answers. The technology is not perfect. Let me lead with that. A few overarching thoughts. I think as we get into this AI future, I'm hoping folks approach it with creativity and humility. AI is not a magic bullet. It'll take someone from a 0 to a 6, but the 6 to 10 will always be human enabled. And I hope we as a society continue to push for that. Second, this is my overarching ask to academia. Look, my goal behind Yudely is to help kids speak with confidence, but we have so many enterprise users because academia has been slow to adopt tech like this. It's like, well, I'm in a contract with someone else and, there's this concern over here and we've got a 2-month cycle, which is why my approach is just start using the tool free of cost. And if you have questions, reach out to me directly. I'm here to help. And the last is I hope we can shape all of this together. Nobody knows where the world is going right now, but hopefully we can keep having more discussions like this. I'll leave a bunch of links in the chat, but I hope to see you all on the Yudely Slack community. Jeremy, that's where we have lots of B school professors and coaches, etc. And hopefully we can help a lot of students out with this.
That's awesome. So yeah, definitely check it out. The link is in the chat. I'll share all of those over email with the recording. And I'll just sort of end on the note I started on, which is just like I told my kindergarten teachers or kindergarten students 20 years ago, the best way to learn anything, whether it's learning to read or learning AI, is just dive right in and get your hands dirty. So consider this your digital sandbox. Consider this your invitation to play. And we would love to learn alongside with you. So just like Gregory's been sharing in the chat, if you see great resources or great ideas or even great sort of caution points, let us know. And we can't wait to go on this journey with you. So,
awesome. Jeremy, you and I'll hang on. If folks want to hang on and geek out to AI ideas, etc., happy to stay on.
Absolutely. All right. Here's wishing you a fantastic start to the week and a beautiful start to spring.